Can you hear us, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you, but there's a bit of echo. There's some echo coming out from there.
Honorable Stock.
Is it better now?
Yes, it's much better, but there's still some echo. Just sort out the echo, but I think the sound is much clearer
The
now.
room that we are
Honorable
in.
Stock. Morning,
Hello?
Honorable Stock.
Morning, Shalo.
Yes, how is my Lentuk
If you are
sound?
yeah, right.
Is sound?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
it's
you're right.
right, right.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
And Kon wants the background, you know, it's fine for this songs.
Okay.
Sure.
Chair, but you are on you are not in the middle. You are like on the side.
Thank you very much. I'm going to correct that. I was avoiding something on the background in Iconi, but it's fine.
Okay. What about my sound? Is it okay?
It's very clear.
It's very clear. Very clear. Yeah. I don't
Thank
communicate.
you.
I hope the way your sound is clear, I don't think you are in Guyana, ne? On a live
I'm
note.
home. I'm home, Chair.
How is it now? Am I in the middle?
I just shift a little bit towards your left-hand side. No, not that
This
side.
side, eh?
Yeah,
This side.
yeah. No, you're fine now. You're fine.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, honorable members. Morning, Chair.
Morning, Honorable Sukers. 8
Morning.
hours of the morning with Seika.
Morning, Honorable Chair, Maslengwa.
Yeah. Maslengwa,
Honorable Shengwa. Morning.
Maslengwa, I'm fine, and you?
Good,
Fine,
good,
Maslengwa.
thank you.
Mkhaya. Molo Mkhaya.
Mkhaya. Bengoze ngizwe nini ukuthi Mkhaya.
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 Goeiemôre, eerbare Liesel van der Merwe.
Goeiemôre, agbare soekers. Hoe gaan dit vanoggend?
Dit gaan goed. Ek is in jou constituency province, jong.
Het maakt niet slecht.
Is het lekker warm?
Is goed.
Dit is lekker warm. Maar ek moet nog die koue van die Kaap afskud.
Oeh, jy sien jy kan lekker see toe gaan. Dit is altyd warm in KwaZulu-Natal.
Ja.
Kan jy my duidelik hoor?
Ek kan
Môre,
jou duidelik hoor.
Ja, vertel julle.
Kan julle moet die kan kom. Julle moet die kan kom.
It's 6 minutes past 10 now. What time is
But
the
there
meeting?
can-
Good morning, panel member Liesel. Good morning, Liesel.
How are you, Mama Mashasha? Hallo Mama Mashasha.
I'm fine, Makoti.
Thank you, Ma.
Ndaba ezitha ngibingelela inkosi manje uyazi. Ndaba ezitha madlanduna.
Wat se geraas aan
Masha,
volgende en môre.
Mama Shash. Sawubona Mama
Ndaba ezitha.
Cherry, I need
Ndaba ezitha.
Awusikhona Mama Shash.
Sikhona baba sikhona.
I-meeting e-IFP le. Am I in the wrong meeting?
Yes, you have joined
Meeting.
Welcome.
Iku-meeting yomgwamanda na.
Meeting yomgwamanda we-IFP.
Hayi hlengiwe siphethwe thina sinamakhosi hlengiwe man sinamakhosi.
Can we start the parliamentary?
Sinamakhosi okwamukela lokho ukwamukele nje ukuthi sinamakhosi siphethe nje.
Now can we start
Ukwamukele nje
the
lokho.
parliamentary meeting Mgwamanda we-IFP? Can we start with the parliamentary?
Chairperson, can we keep private conversations for later, please? The session should have started at 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Attention members, I want to welcome all those, who have logged into the virtual mini plenary. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer.
Silent prayer meditation.
Thank you, members. Honorable members, before we proceed, as you know, I would like to remind you that the virtual plenary is deemed to be the precinct of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of virtual sittings, the National Assembly, including the rules of the debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said to a house and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested, very important, to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your mic and connect your video. Members may make use of the icons in the bar at the bottom of the screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand. It will assist in alerting the chairpersons to members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. We shall now proceed to the order, which is the debate on vote 19, Social Development Appropriation Bill. I now recognize the Honorable, the Minister of Social Development. Minister.
Chairperson, Honorable Janji, thank you very much for this opportunity. Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, Deputy Minister of Social Development, Bokopane Zulu, MECs for Social Development present in today's presentation, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans, members of the media, nani lapo emakhaya, nabantu bethu esisebenza nabo ngaso sonke isikhathi, siyabonga kakhulu ukuthi nikhona namhlanje nizolalela i-budget emqoka kakhulu empilweni zabantu base South Africa. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2022-23 budget vote 19 of the Department of Social Development to this honorable house. In the past 2 years, our people and institutions have been on the front lines of a series of novel challenges and disasters, such as COVID-19, the July 2021 unrest, and lately, the floods in KwaZulu-Natal and in the Eastern Cape provinces. Throughout this time, we held together a society and formed defenses with which we are protecting and improving our people's lives and livelihoods, informed by the need to improve the state of the collective of our people, their families, and communities throughout our country. The social development portfolio is entering a period of the great shift wherein our visibility, responsiveness, and relevance will be aligned with the people's felt needs. A social development portfolio, there is DSD, SASA, and NDA. We are entering this era of great shift by remaking ourselves, because the future of each South African is greater than the past we come from. And together with all South Africans, we are going to make tomorrow worth living for. Working together with our provincial departments of social development, the South African Social Security Agency, SASA, and the National Development Agency, NDA, and corresponding with President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address, throughout this financial year, the Department of Social Development will intentionally intensify its contribution towards interventions that address the impact of poverty, inequality, unemployment through the following. 1, continuously improving the implementation, quality, and research of social and reach of all social development services for each South African and towards the realization of a society-wide impact. 2, strengthening our fight against gender-based violence and femicide by means of implementing the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, in particular, Pillar 4. 3, the establishment of beneficial and sustainable linkages in implementation of social development services and economic opportunities, particularly through creating and supporting the participation of beneficiaries in the social economy. The economy is just as important to all these beneficiaries. 4, continuing with the implementation of the COVID-19 Social Relief of Distress SRD grant, the very popular 350. 5, ensuring that our program implementation embodies the protection and furtherance of dignity of our people. 6, leading the formation of community-targeted and strong people, public, private, civic, academic, multilateral partnership, and social compacting in areas such as tackling gangsterism, substance abuse, gender-based violence, and the impact of disasters, shocks, and emergencies. 7, expanding our support for food and nutrition provision, interventions in pursuit of ending the pain of hunger, as well as undoing the effects of malnutrition. 8, implementing social development programs through the cabinet-adopted district development model. This district development model will end being a song. It will be a reality for us as Department of Social Development in our portfolio. 9, strengthening government's coordination and implementation mechanisms across the 3 spheres of government of the people. And 10, stabilizing and strengthening institutional governance and capacity to implement programs throughout the social development portfolio. This is about the capacity of the state to deliver to the people of South Africa. In light of the sustained conflict in Europe, not only is the cost of basic food items and energy sources rising, but the likelihood of our people securing these basic provisions on a continued basis is increasingly becoming remote. Inadvertently, ill prospects such as these only serve to heighten the need for social development interventions to be strengthened towards ensuring that the state of our people does not deteriorate any further. We are presenting this budget vote at the midterm of the 6th administration's electoral mandate. Therefore, this budget is the opportunity to meaningfully remake ourselves in a manner that reflects the great future that each South African lives to realize. Henceforth, programmatic performance across the social development portfolio must be consistent with the great shift as well as the people's aspirations. Our institutions must be the true embodiment of the people's aspirations. To this end, during the State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa challenged us to forge, and I quote, a consensus that unites us behind our shared determination, our economy, and rebuild our institutions, unquote. Guided by, among other, the SONA priorities, the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, the Putting South Africa to Work proposals, and the need to found and sustain social compacts that will bring all of us, especially communities. Communities must be at the center. Together, the Department of Social Development is addressing itself to the realization of the people's aspirations. And here I am presenting the breakdown of the budget 2022-2023. Vote 19 of the Department of Social Development is government's third largest budget for the 2022-23 financial year, and it constitutes 13.1% of government's overall estimated budget of 1.957 trillion. Our budget allocation for the 2022-23 financial year is a total of 257 billion, of which 248 billion is allocated to cover more than 18 million social grant beneficiaries. The social grant investment constitutes, and I repeat, constitutes 99.6% of the department's total budget allocation in the current financial year. Therefore, this means 96.6% of the resources that are given to the Department of Social Development are given in hand to our communities so that they can live. With regard to SASSA, SASSA will distribute 248 billion directly to more than 18 million beneficiaries monthly. These include old age, child support, disability, and foster care grant beneficiaries. Honorable members, we are not just about the 350. We are about supporting all these categories that I have indicated. Added to this is an amount of 44 billion that has been allocated for the extension of the special COVID-19 social relief of distress grant for 1 year. This will be distributed to 10.5 million eligible persons monthly. An amount of 7,499 billion is allocated towards SASSA's operations and grant payment fees. And honorable members, we have to pay for these processes as SASSA. This operational budget enables SASSA to continue to meaningfully contribute towards reducing poverty among South Africans who are unable to support themselves. Moreover, SASSA will continue to provide temporary reprieve to individuals and families who are experiencing temporary distress, such as those they assisted during the recent floods in KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape provinces, in order to meet their basic needs whilst they are addressing the temporary challenges. Most relevant to our commitment to social economic reconstruction and recovery, henceforth, SASSA will be supporting initiatives through which COVID-19 SRD grant beneficiaries, as well as child support grant caregivers, can access employment opportunities. Because again, we keep talking about the fact that we are not just about consumption, we are also about powering our own people to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, but we need to create the conducive environment for that. Meanwhile, SASSA continues to invest in enhanced digital and data capabilities by means of which the service experience of beneficiaries are eased, and the experience of during this COVID-19 of the 350 is one thing that we will be using as a way forward. With regard to COVID-19 SRD grant, the allocation of COVID-19 social relief of distress grant for the year 2022-23 is 44 billion. This means that each month, 10.5 million approved applicants will receive this important social safety net intervention that cushions them and their families against the constants of unemployment and poverty. This grant type is increasingly taking advantage of commonplace data and digital infrastructure to process applications and conduct verifications. Therefore, the need for physical contact is greatly reduced. The application channels for the grant for the period from April 2022 to March 2023, as announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa, opened on the 23rd April 2022. By 30 April 2022, in excess of 8.1 million applicants had already been received. I assure all qualifying applicants that they will be in receipt of their payment for this iteration of the grant by June. On the question of accessibility of grant payments infrastructure, SASSA is extending its negotiations to include local fast-moving consumer goods traders as part of their payment outlets for COVID-19 SRD. And I know the members will be asking me about the post office. I know that. I wish to reiterate our government's commitment and readiness to fight crime syndicates and criminals who are defrauding the state. To this end, we are continuing to work together with the relevant law enforcement agencies to ensure that these and their actions are detected, isolated, arrested, and successfully prosecuted. We are coming for you, and Minister Pegitele will be happy to see that we handing you over to him. Extended Child Support Grant. In support of the department's commitment to find a comprehensive legal solution to the foster care challenges which have been plaguing the sector for many years, an amount of 687 million in 2023-2024 and 871 million in 2024-2025 has been allocated for the implementation of the long-awaited Extended Child Support Grant, otherwise known as the Top-Up Child Support Grant for orphans who are in the care of relatives. As soon as the amended regulations to the Social Assistance Act 2004 are published in the next few days, SASSA will be in a position to provide the Extended Child Support Grant of 720 rands per child per month to relatives who are caring for the orphaned children. While we expect the Extended Child Support Grant to be implemented in June of this year, we estimate that it will be received by over 191,000 relatives during the 2022-2023 financial year. Let me remind you that in order to access this grant, qualifying applicants need not go through the lengthy children's court process, which was a nightmare. As a result, the affected children will quickly receive the support they need for them to unlock their full potential. Now, with regard to the National Development Agency, NDA is allocated 290 million to implement its primary mandate of contributing towards the eradication of poverty and its causes by granting funds to civil society organizations. Through grant funding, the NDA will address the increasing cost pressure that civil society organizations, CSOs, are experiencing. This intervention will enable CSOs to support their communities as they recover from the effects of the disasters we've been through. Quite frankly, I personally believe that if these CSOs really also support our communities, we would have less of our people complaining, because these are the CSOs that are supposed to be on the ground reaching our people. In the same vein, throughout this financial year, NDA will positively impact the skills base and sustainability with the CSO's environment. And to this effect, while a total of 1,846 CSOs were provided with financial and management skills that would enable them to operate sustainably and stabilize the governance of their organizations. And honorable members, usually the problem is with the governance structures of these organizations and accountability by these organizations. This year, the NDA will be implementing its partnership model by which the investments of diversity of partners will be coordinated towards positive impact on targeted communities. At the heart of the success of these partnerships will be the piloting of interventions through the cabinet-adopted district development model. As companies are scaling down or shutting down their operations, the NDA will be creating 3,000 work opportunities in the current financial year. Out of these, 2,300 will be created through the implementation of the volunteer program, which will be funded through the Presidential Employment Stimulus Package. With regard to the South African Council for Social Services Professions, SACSSP, for the remaining medium-term expenditure framework period, an amount of 125 million has been allocated towards strengthening the operations of the South African Council for Social Services Professions for it to carry out its legislated mandate. The Council is important to regulate and professionalize the social service profession sector. We will continue our discussions with different stakeholders to ensure that social service professions are adequately funded and utilized as part of our country's social economic reconstruction and recovery efforts. The department's programs, I need to go to the department's programs has allocated an amount of 43 million to be transferred to the National Council that renders vital services. These include the South African National AIDS Council, which is allocated an amount of 15.635 million in the current financial year. This leaves the department with an operational budget of 944 million. With regard to welfare services policy development, 309 million of the department's allocation will go towards welfare services policy development programs, amongst which are social crime prevention and victim empowerment that has been allocated 75,402 million, substance abuse for which 20,726 million has been budgeted for, older persons allocated 19.126 million, and youth, which has been allocated 12.607 million. Social policy and integrated development programs, 359 million has been allocated towards social policy and integrated development programs. This includes the key programmatic areas such as supporting the Central Drug Authority in doing its work, 7.069 million, the registration and monitoring of non-profit organization, NPO, 41.910 million, the promotion of population policy, 38.733 million, community development, 29.863 million, and substance abuse advisory services and oversight, 7.69 million. On gender-based violence, in line with the commitment of the 6th administration, the department will continue to play an important role in the implementation of Pillar 4 of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Our society's success in undoing the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide rests on the pursuit of comprehensive and targeted partnership across different sectors. While we are working towards measurable outcomes, we shall continue with the implementation of awareness and advocacy programs and assign specific attention to areas that the Minister of Police has declared GBV hotspots. To this end, we have trained and deployed GBVF ambassadors to work closely with local community organizations towards ensuring that our services are accessible for survivors of gender-based violence through the NDA. We partnered with community-based civil society organizations who are well positioned to support locally. To this end, and owing to the Criminal Assets Recovery funds, which is the CARA funds, the NDA funded 297 civil society organizations to render support services to survivors of GBV. With regard to expansion of shelters, we are working jointly with the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure to identify state-owned facilities across the country that can be repurposed into Kuselega One-Stop Center. In addition to rendering psychosocial support to survivors during the recovery process, we are expanding the developmental dimension of facilities and as offering productive skills, enabling economic empowerment towards self-reliance are concerned. In this regard, we are finalizing agreements with different sectors, with different sector education and training authority. It is important for us to appreciate that training is very important for our communities, because as I indicated earlier on, it's important to create a conducive environment for our people to make their life and livelihoods and to be alive. Honorable Chairperson, as I draw towards the conclusion, please allow me to evoke Pixley Gaseme when he delivering an address in 1906. He authoritatively stated, and I quote, "The regeneration of Africa means that a new and unique civilization is soon to be added to the world," and I unquote. In view of the reconstruction and recovery plan that we have chosen for our society and economy following the disaster we had to endure, budget vote 19 of the Department of Social Development for the 2022-2023 financial year is meaningful contribution to the rise of South Africa that we all want, as well as the South African who we want to inhabit it. Here, in simple terms, I mean, government has got responsibility, citizens too have got responsibility. Please allow me to conclude by thanking the Deputy Minister, Henrietta Bogopa-Zulu, for her relentless contribution to the realization of this mandate. May I also add, Chairperson, that since the disaster happened in KwaZulu-Natal, Deputy Minister Henrietta Bogopa-Zulu has been on the ground in KwaZulu-Natal. I also thank the Acting Director General, Mr. Linton Nkunu, and his management team, the Chief Executive Officers of SASSA and Acting Chief Executive Officer of NDA, MS Totsi Memela Kambula and Mr. Bongani Magongo, respectively, and their management team, as well as the Council and Register of the South African Council for Social Services. I am grateful to the ministry team, our social partners, embassies, multilateral institutions, NPOs, activists on the ground, and all the social service professions who are going a long way towards translating the social development mandate into reality in many of our communities. I am grateful to the African National Congress for the continued support, continued confidence that they've continued to give me in serving the people of South Africa. Honorable Chair, in particular, I'd like to thank my family who are always enjoying my absence, enjoying my noise in the house because I'm screaming at the officials and everything. Now that we've been having this thing of having meetings at home, I'm sure they are tired of my voice. I apologize to you, but I'm serving the people of South Africa. Honorable Chairperson, I hereby table budget vote 19 of the Department of Social Development, together with priorities for the 2022-23 financial year. And to the honorable members, we are yet coming to you to present to you our operational plans, so that as you do your oversight, you will be oversighting on something that we have presented to you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much, honorable members. Abantu abasemakhaya, ngiyethemba ukuthi nani nisizwile, nilalele ukuthi siniphathele ini si-Department ye-Social Development. Kinagana gore kaofela batho ko gae ba mametseng today ba tla re thusa to make sure that South Africa becomes a better place for everybody. I thank you.
Enkosi Mphathiswa, Minister Zulu. I now recognize the Honorable Mvana from the African National Congress.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable Minister and Honorable Deputy Minister, stakeholders, and honorable members, good morning to everybody. I'm gonna deal with consolidating and defending our democratic gains through expanding the comprehensive social security system. SOCDEV, Chairperson, has been tasked with a critical task of consolidating the social wage through reliable and quality basic services, in line with the NDP, that is the National Development Plan priority of expansion of social security system. It also plays a key role on South Africa's contributing towards the achievement of sustainable development. Expansion of of social security. The recent COVID pandemic has exposed the level of poverty and inequality in our society. The recent climate change, natural disaster in KZN, Eastern Cape, and parts of Northwest, and the fire in the Western Cape have also shown that we are living at a time of disasters. And this requires the department and government to streamline governance system and legislation to enable an efficient disaster response by the department. The Department of Social Development has demonstrated during the pandemic and during period of crisis that our government has relatively developed responsive capabilities of the state. The other point is the Bill of Rights and the comprehensive social security system policy imperatives. The mandate of SOCDEV is to provide social production or protection services and leads government efforts to forge the partnership through vulnerable individuals, groups, and communities become capable and self-reliant participants in their own development. In order to eradicate poverty, we need to create economic opportunities for the poor. The ANC government has placed education as an apex priority in order to address generation poverty or general poverty, which is a result of land dispossession and exclusion of the majority of BEC, SA, from quality education and economic freedom. The comprehensive social security system is part of the social wage, which our government has prioritized, honorable members. This vote 19 is critical to the reduction of levels of poverty, inequality, vulnerability, and social ills. It also has mechanisms in places to empower resilient and individuals, families, and sustainable communities, and also progressively ensure that it is led by a functional, efficient, and integrated sector. The other point is comprehensive social assistance coverage, protecting the most vulnerable, and social wage prioritization. Several research studies have placed the South Africa's social assistance program, that's the social grant, as we used to call it, as one of the key programs which contributes the poverty alleviation and income security for the most vulnerable groups. The program has been found to be developmental in nature. This means that it did not only immediately reduce poverty, but it promotes people's ability to look for employment or undertake risk to generate their own income. All major social grants, such as the old age pension, child support grant, and the disability grant, are significantly and positively associated with a greater share of household expenditure on food. Social grants, which is called SRD, provide income security to about 47 South Africans. Honorable members, the South African Social Security Agency, that is we call SASSA at our times, pays more than 18.5 million beneficiaries with a target to approve and pay additionally 1.2 million in 2022-23 financial year, thus increasing the total number of beneficiaries to 18.9 million. Most importantly, in 2023-24 financial year, it will commence with payment of child support grant, top up for double orphans. It has a target to reach 191,200 beneficiaries. A total of 587 million and 871 million has been allocated for this financial year, that is 2023-24, respectively. COVID-19 social relief measures and disaster responses. South Africa, as the the rest of the world had to fight off the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. As I have already said, the social development portfolio became one of key leading government institutions that had to implement social relief against the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. These include the provision of the psychosocial support services, social relief distress, that is the grant of SRD, the top-up grant of the social grant, the social relief of distress through the food and the nutrition program, the ones that we called food parcels. The presidential stimulus relief to the ECD sector and implementation of the criminal asset recovery account, which we call it CARA program, contributes to the creating work opportunities. Studies of the impact of the SRD grant have found that the grant benefited both the previously and recently employed people. It enabled unemployed people to adversely seeking employment to actively seeking employment by adding to transport costs, internet cafe, cost money to purchase data to send CVs, etc. Therefore, this grant enables citizens to exercise their economic rights to attain better opportunities. In some households, it became the main source of income, contributing to the food security. With the extension of the payment of the SRD grant to March 2023, an amount of 44 billion has been additionally allocated to cover 10.5 million eligible persons. This is the commitment of the president in the SONA on not leaving no one behind. Notwithstanding this achievement, SASSA continues to face challenges of fraud and corruption in grant payment systems. People that we know that are not supposed to get these grants are also getting them unofficial or illegal. It also faces challenges of long queues at its local offices and pay points. Siyazazi queue izinto ezingapheliyo abantu balala ema-post office, and set a target to develop consultation report on draft policy for income support to 18 to 59 years old for this financial year. It will also develop a draft policy on voluntary cover to retirement and sick benefits for typical and informal sector workers. This is in line with the national discussion which President Cyril Ramaphosa urged society to engage on consideration for the basic income grant, for a basic income grant. This will yield good outcome in consolidating a social safety net for all vulnerable SA South Africans. Honorable members, all of these initiatives underpin how this vote enables a comprehensive social support system that empowers people and protects the poor and the most vulnerable. As the African National Congress, we will play our robust oversight over the executive and work with the department to ensure it continues protecting the well-being of the poor. Chairperson, I wish to say the words that the minister has said of thanking everyone, thanking our stakeholders to support us, thanking our honorable members and the backup staff. Otherwise, the ANC support the budget vote of 2019. Thank you very much.
I now recognize Honorable Masango.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The report we are debating today, while ticking some boxes on the efforts of the department and its entities, largely reveals a historical culture of complete neglect of the people the department and its entities are constitutionally mandated to serve. One look at the issues raised by the Auditor General on the APPs is enough to conclude that the department itself has had inadequate capacity to function during what is probably one of the most challenging periods this country and the world has ever faced. But let's examine the failures, Chairperson. The payments of grants, for example, the red flags that were already highlighted by the AG in 2020 have still not been resolved. Then the AG said, SASSA's outdated, limited databases and inadequate verification controls resulted in people who are not in distress receiving the SRD grant, while those who were in distress were unfairly rejected. This, the AG said, was due to the weak government control environment in which the relief funds had landed, the inability to finalize fraud investigation. Astoundingly, some cases date back to 2011 for irregular expenditure, while fruitless and wasteful expenditure dates back to 2013. 83 contracts had expired as at 30 September 2021 with no replacement contracts through normal procurement or deviation process. In 2014, a payment of 316 million rand was made to a service provider for services that were never rendered. Honorable Chairperson, these deeply concerning irregularities are wide-ranging and clearly indicate an entity whose systems and controls are dismally inadequate to manage large sums of money. This decidedly limits the chances of the intended beneficiaries receiving the relief they so desperately need. The emergency SRD grant is managed completely online, but how is this humanly possible when so many people depend on these grants merely to survive? Despite desperate people who walk into SASSA offices for help are arrogantly turned away because the system is only available online. Is this a caring government? No, it's an ANC government. But email and telephone platforms are advertised for queries until you realize that calls are cut off after you've held on for over an hour. Emails are never responded to. Honorable Chairperson, I have to express our grave concern about the recent abrupt and insensitive announcement to discontinue pay points. This is a further indication that the department is removed from the day-to-day reality facing especially those grant recipients who live in remote rural areas where the retailers given by SASSA don't have a footprint. These people will have to travel long distances to access their grants. It is a mere transfer of queues from retailers, from the post office to retailers. Only this time, these people would have paid exorbitant transport costs. Honorable Chairperson, the situation in this department is dire. Performance improvements are overshadowed by persistent gaps that render the department paralyzed. It is unable to provide the services millions are dependent on. The state of disaster in poor household has not come to an end. The change in the approval of the SRD grant using an act that people in extended and deepening levels of vulnerability is a slap in the face of poor South Africans. It is a reminder of an uncaring ANC poverty government. Amazingly, the extension of the SRD grant was made in February as a result of staggering unemployment figures. And yet we are today on the 13th of May and applicants have still not been paid. And there is no indication of when they will be paid. Shame on you, ANC. There is no clarity on when, if at all, the reconsideration of appeals date.
Thank you. The time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Now recognize the Honorable Marek.
Honorable Chairperson, in 2021, we witnessed scenes in the streets of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal when hundreds of our people stormed shops and caused unimaginable chaos. The EFF has always warned that our people are desperate and hungry. One day they will have nothing to eat, but just to take even if it means breaking the law. Poverty is a security threat. Hunger without hope is a security threat. Hopelessness is a security threat. And we have failed to provide a social security system that uplifts our people out of poverty. The poor continue to suffer the effects of a mismanaged economy, deep structural poverty. The COVID pandemic has now in the floods in KZN and Eastern Cape. In the suffering and torment, the price of food has gone up. The price of transport has gone up. There are no reliable electricity, and crime, including violent crime, has gone up. This is why we must increase the care dependency grant from 1,890 to 3,980 to allow those who have taken the responsibility of caring for those who can't care for themselves to afford food. That is why we must increase the dependency grant. We must increase the disability grant from 2,000 to 4,000. We must increase the old age grant from 1,980 to 3,960. We must increase the foster care grant from 1,070 to 2,140. The permanent solution is the implementation of social assistance and backwards a universal basic income for all. The EFF rejects the proposed budget for the Department of Social Development because it does not make provision for those increase or work towards the implementation of the universal basic income grant. Despite the EFF calls for those increases, Honorable Chairperson, allow me to address the ruling party incompetence that fails to the poorest of the poor, those who have already been failed by the society that has failed to lift them out of poverty. The SASSA grant payment system uses a 25-year-old computer system that crashes more than 10 times a month. The system crashes 119 times in 11 months. This is how the system is left vulnerable to exploit by thieves from the inside. Over 200 million was looted and only 12.5 million was recovered. When we demand that social grants is double, we are told there are no money. But money allocated for social grants is stolen every day. Money is stolen from when poor people wait for months for a doctor's assessments to quality for social grants. Money is stolen from SASSA officials are overworked and poorly paid. It is shocking that the ruling party will celebrate the 31% of South Africans relying on social grants. If we add the COVID-19 social relief grant, the number is nearly 50%. This is the scale of the failure of the ruling class. And this is the failure they celebrate every year when they table the proposed social development budget. We know that that the cronies they celebrate is not about the feeding millions of poor people. It's a celebration about transactions and contracts out of social grants administrations. That is why they refuse to create a state-owned bank. That is why now it is announced that social grants will no longer be paid through the post office. The intention was never to build a long-term relationship with the post office. Instead, it is a bank that must benefit. Lastly, it is shockingly that both the report and the proposed budget are silent on the appointment of much-needed social workers, while we have social workers, graduates sitting at home unemployed. This is not only incompetent, it is also evil. The EFF rejects the proposed budget for the social development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I now recognize Honorable van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, it is another year and yet another budget vote debate, and it will be the same script. The Minister outlining the progress made by the ANC-led government, as she's just done, a very craftful exercise in sugarcoating the truth and reality. The reality being that South Africa is in a perpetual crisis mode.
You are breaking up.
Oh. Let me switch off my video then. Can I continue? Okay.
Go ahead.
The reality being that South Africa is in a perpetual crisis mode, that we face a foster care crisis, an adoption crisis, a social worker crisis, a gender-based violence crisis, a substance abuse crisis, and we face a leadership crisis. The truth being that despite countless promises and a 2018 cabinet resolution to employ them, roughly 7,000 social workers trained by the state are still sitting at home. NPOs are still underfunded, with many having had their budgets cut, leaving the elderly vulnerable. Our children still die on the killing fields of the gangster-ridden Cape Flats because there's no concrete plan to fight gangsterism. The reality being that the post office, which is on the verge of collapse, and SASSA will possibly drive us to yet another grants crisis, with the announcement that due to unforeseen circumstances and long queues, SAPO will no longer be able to pay the 350 Rand grant. Surely, it is unforgivable that this government would punish vulnerable citizens for its nightmarish long queues, all while it excels at paying grants to comrades, officials, and those who do not qualify for the grant. The truth being that SASSA's databases are so dysfunctional and broken that it's not fit for purpose. In 2021, over 200 million was lost on the payment of the 350 Rand grant to people who didn't qualify for them. Furthermore, many repeat findings by the AG minister have not been attended to. Consequence management within this department doesn't exist. Taxpayer money minister is being wasted and nobody is held to account. Investigations into fruitless and wasteful expenditure is just never finalized. This is our reality. We meet at a time when KwaZulu-Natal has just suffered the most devastating floods in history. In the midst of this devastation, President Ramaphosa was quick to reassure the nation that his government, its officials, and his party's rank and file will not steal the relief meant for the poor. His distress was not misplaced. During the COVID-19 pandemic, leaders stole food parcels, thousands of government officials, even those working in President Ramaphosa's office and treasury, sold the 350. Chairperson, ours is the highest unemployment rate in the world. Grants, therefore, are a necessity, not an accomplishment. Let us be honest today that this rhetoric of our government of expanding the comprehensive social security system is nothing more than the creation of a welfare state. 50% of South Africans already rely on some type of grant. We need a clear plan to lift our people out of poverty, not keep them trapped in poverty by the ruling party to create a success story. Chairperson, in a speech to the White House, Auschwitz survivor Elie Wiesel once asked, "What is indifference?" He then said, and I quote, "In a way, to be indifferent to suffering is what makes the human being inhuman. Indifference is not a beginning, it is the end. The hungry children and the homeless, not to respond to their plight, not to relieve their solitude by offering them a spark of hope, is to exile them from human memory. And in denying their humanity, we betray our own." 28 years after the dawn of our democracy, children are dying of hunger. According to reports, close to 200 children died of malnutrition in January and February alone, with poor children being forced to eat plants and sand to fill their stomachs. These children were not just mere statistics. Their lives mattered. They died of hunger despite a welfare state, despite being born in a free South Africa under a democratic dispensation. For these hungry children, nobody offered them hope, nobody responded to their plight, and they were denied their humanity. This department sums up its own challenges very well in its APP on page 22 when it states that it's poor at the enforcement and implementation of acts, that it's reactive to social ills, that it's ineffective at monitoring and evaluation, that it has poor oversight and governance over SASSA and the NDA, it has critical leadership vacancies, and that there is a low absorption of social workers. Minister, in order for us to support this budget, the IFP calls on you to table as a matter of urgency a plan of action to absorb all social workers. In addition, the minister must also table a plan of action to address the department's weaknesses, the AG's findings, a plan to enforce a culture of consequence management, and a plan to intensify the fight against fraud and corruption. There is so much injustice, Chairperson. We cannot afford to be indifferent to the plight of the most vulnerable. For indifference is not a beginning, it is an end. Indifference will render us inhuman. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize Honorable Breed.
Dankie, agbare voorsitter. Die departement en sy entiteite was 'n sleuteldepartement gedurende die afgelope ramptoestand. Die departement was nog altyd veronderstel om die lig aan die einde van 'n baie donker tonnel vir ons mees behoeftiges in Suid-Afrika te wees. Maar die realiteit is dat hierdie departement en sy entiteite die mense gefaal het. Die bevindinge van die OG is nie nuwe nuus of enigstens eers verstommend nie. Dit bevestig egter net wat die oppositie van die begin af gesê het. Alhoewel dit nie nuwe nuus is nie, lees dit soos 'n Stephen King thriller. Under the various headings, financial management and health, compliance management, human resources, procurement and contract management, the findings are more damning than the next. What is of specific concern is the material losses from non-compliance with legislation, fraudulent transactions, as well as irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Furthermore, the inability to finalize investigations in a timely manner has resulted in a failure to implement consequence management against those who were responsible for incurring irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. SASSA apparently recovered 12.6 million rand from 3,268 public servants who illegally received grants. However, there has thus far been no consequences for state employees who have been found to receive grants they did not qualify for. This is a disgrace, and I would urge the Minister to not just pay lip service, but to take action. A start can also be the filling of key posts, such as the position of the Director General of the department. Whether the incumbent acting DG is doing a good job or not is not the discussion. The fact of the matter is that this department needs stability. A permanent DG will be a start. Mother Teresa once said, "We think sometimes that poverty is only being hungry, naked, and homeless, but poverty is being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for is the greatest poverty. We must start in our own homes to remedy this kind of poverty." And that, Chairperson, brings me to a matter that I feel the Minister needs to address today, and that is the court case between SA Childcare and the Department regarding the payment of conditional ECD grants. 15 Rand per child per day. That is what the grant consists of. These are children that are orphans or have absolutely no other source of nutrition and care but through these centres. These centres have to be approved to receive these grants through a stringent process provided for in the framework to DORA. In these instances, they were approved in 2019 already. Vulnerable children who are dependent on these ECDs and this grant for food were deprived during the worst of times, the pandemic. This grant was rather utilized to procure PPEs rather than feed food to these children. The end result of the initial judgment was that Judge Jansen van Nieuwenhuizen found the Minister and 8 MECs in breach of their statutory duties prescribed in DORA by failing to pay the funds allocated to the children, as well as in breach of their constitutional duties prescribed in Section 28(1)(c) of the Constitution. Instead of adhering to the judgment, the Minister and MECs, after conceding on no less than 10 occasions that the money is due and owing, appealed against the order. Leave to appeal was granted in December of 2020. Fast forward a whole 18 months to a notice for hearing, a new directive to argue whether the matter has not become academic in nature, and still no officials have been brought to book and the most vulnerable are still suffering. This matter needs to be resolved in the interest of children and the ECDs. Voorsitter, dis egter 'n skrikende skande dat vir meer as 9 jaar daardie toelaag stagneer het op R15 per kind per dag. Terwyl die regering geld mors op duur funksies, hotelverblyf, VIP protection en besigheidsklas vlugte vir ministers, kry hierdie mees kwesbare kinders slegs R15 per dag vir kos, vir klere en vir skooltoebehore. As die departement nie gaan begin fokus op kinders en die ontwikkeling van kinders nie, sal ons altyd 'n welsynsstaat bly. Maar ek sluit af, voorsitter. Die probleem lê by die ANC, want die ANC pak alles ideologies aan en verkies om die mense afhanklik te hou en tot en met die minister en haar departement nie hierdie kop skuif gemaak het nie, gaan Suid-Afrika nie net 'n gefaalde staat wees nie, maar 'n welsynsstaat bly. Ek dank u.
I now recognize Honorable Sukas.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. A long, hard winter approaches the poor and vulnerable when viewed through the current economic environment, the high rate of unemployment, and the instability many households are forced to endure post the COVID crisis. The budget of this department decreases by over 25 billion rand, and more people now need access to social security and support. The performance scorecard of the department is that of a struggling student who repeats the same mistakes year on year. The state's inability to transform itself to provide efficient service to the poor is the single biggest threat to the security and stability of South Africa. That within an environment with multiple threats. I say this to you today because in April, I received almost 20 to 30 messages daily from people who did not know how they will survive due to the non-stop payment of the SRD grant. We cannot afford to take the critical issues highlighted by my colleagues here today and the many alarms being raised by stakeholders in the social sector lightly. The state sets itself as an agitator of the worst kind to the poor. You promise relief and then stop it abruptly. In addition, you fail to plan and, more importantly, to communicate effectively for the legislative changes of which you knew comes with lifting the national state of disaster. The ACDP urgently appeals to this House and the department to consider the dire circumstances of our people that requires a deep rethink of the way in which we do things politically. If the state, this department and its entities continues to make the same repetitive mistakes and fails to adopt an urgent change of strategy in all its functions, this country will plunge into an unthinkable crisis. There can be no politicking or grandstanding. We are in a deep mess when it comes to the systems and processes that are supposed to undergird the social security network of this country. We must acknowledge that through the commitment and hard work of ordinary South Africans, there would not have been over 230 billion available for the protection of the poor and vulnerable in 2021. It is because of the ordinary men and women who get up and go to work, come rain or sunshine, that we have the biggest social security network on the continent. Let us and this department honor their commitment by doing the right thing. For the love of humanity, we ask you to plan and communicate effectively and to recover stolen grant monies from the criminals who stole it. Chairperson, we must lead differently. We cannot agitate for change but fail to recognize our own responsibility politically. If we fail, history will show us as the worst kind of leaders, criminal in our dereliction of duty, with a callousness that comes from spiritual bankruptcy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I recognize the UDM.
Chairperson, thank you very much. And this will be Zabando by Magama and I'm Shandu and Chairperson, thank you very much for this opportunity. The UDM supports the budget vote. Minister, firstly, the issue for us, Balulekileyo yokubaqala even nakule SRD grant. Basebaninzi abantu abafanele ukuthi abayifumani le mali babe beyifumana. Baninzi abantu ngokuye sihamba ezilokishini, ngokuye uhamba ezilalini abaziqeshileyo, abaziphangelelayo, ingeniso yabo ngenyanga more than even inantsika the minimum wage. Kodwa ingxaki into yoba i-database yenu anikhange nibe nendlela yokuyicoca nokuyibamba ngendlela eyiyo. Baninzi, for example, abantu uyawufumanisa ukuthi bakwi-transport industry baneemoto bayazirenkishela benza lena, abanye baziqeshile bayathengisa banezitends benza imali enkulu kodwa bayayithatha le 350. Izibangele le nto ukuthi abona abantu bafanele bayifumana le mali bangayifumani. Into esihleli siyithetha ke si-United Democratic Movement kwakudala ukuthi i-informal sector ye-economy yaseMzantsi Afrika bafanele abantu ba-encourage ukuze bayiformalize so that bazokwazi urejistarisha, kodwa bangathi besawurejistarishwa once umuntu aformalize aleqwe ngu-SARS, sibe nendlela osapota ukuze abantu bakwazi banyaniseke. Okwesibini, into yokuba sisikhalo sabantu okokoko nakulaa Mpuma Koloni bekuliwa ngaso recently, ufumanisa ukuthi you have a lot of social workers not only kula province but around the country abangakhange bakwazi uabsorbed by the department. Ufumanisa ukuthi ngoku baninzi bazi-social workers. I think there's about 8,000 of them around the country with qualifications but who have not been absorbed by the department. Kodwa i-department ifanele isebenzisane nezinye departments like i-SAPS, the Department of Basic Education, to ensure that we address the lack of social workers esikolweni nasezi-police stations. Ulungisela ukuthi ngamaxesha e-gender-based violence amapolisa akwazi uba nabantu abazi-experts abazakwazi ukuthi bahandlishe victims ngendlela kuba sinengxaki ye-gender-based violence in South African femicide. The other issue, Minister, is an issue we also raised with the Department of Education to say ayikho ntle into yoba abantu abazawuqeshwa ezotishara ibe ngabo bafunde ngalaa basari ufunza lutshaba whatever. Elo xesha abantu besebenzisa imali zabo ezinzima ukuze bazifundise. Bonke abantu abane-qualifications eMzantsi Afrika as-South Africans bafanele batrithwe equally, banikwe equal opportunities. Nalapha kule department kukho into yokucalula abantu abafumene i-funding okanye ii-bursaries ze-department ibe ngabona baprioritizwayo over other graduates. Enye i-issue ebalulekileyo into yoba wangekayo zingene ezikolweni zingene emapoliseni, sizawukwazi ukuthi ngakumbi ezikolweni sikwazi nodila ne-issue ye-bullying eqhubekayo eninzi kwizikolo exhaphakileyo ne-issue ye-Eastern Cape ezifunayo nazo inkxaso, kungathiwa kujongwa i-Ukraine nezinye iindawo singajongi abantu behlelekileyo apha kule Western Cape bebethana bebukulana. Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Siyabulela nawe, Nkosi.
Nkosi Tata.
I now recognize Honorable Heron. Honorable Heron, you are now recognized.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, this week, according to news reports, the City of Cape Town issued fines of up to 1,000 Rand to homeless people living on the streets. We don't know how many, if any, of those who receive these fines are beneficiaries of the 350 Rand social relief grant, but we can be pretty sure that most of those people don't have jobs and will never afford to pay those fines. Their situation may be extreme. Most poor people don't live on the streets, but it illustrates how marginal life is in our radically unequal society. As millions of our most needy people seek to manage the consequences of having to reapply for the 350 Rand per month social relief grant, for which some no longer qualify due to the rule changes, the state continues to hum and ha over the implementation of a basic income guarantee or grant. When the 350 Rand grant was introduced to soften the economic blows of the COVID pandemic, it was available to people with an income of less than 595 Rand per month. But that's now been reduced to 350 Rand per month. This appears to indicate that the state believes it's possible to survive on an income of 945 Rand per month under COVID disaster conditions, but 700 Rand per month now that the state of the disaster has been lifted. Although parliamentarians earn a fortune by comparison, we can't pretend we don't know how little 700 Rand buys. Nor can we close our eyes to the social consequences of millions of people not being able to afford the basic costs of life, to feed, clothe, and secure their families. Former Minister of Finance and Governor of the Reserve Bank, Tito Mboweni, says government should rather focus or invest in building the country's economy by investing in infrastructure than in social grants. And yes, we need infrastructure, and developing it will create grants. But supporting a basic income grant doesn't mean we give up on creating jobs. Should people starve while they wait the economic boom times? Did Mr. Mboweni not notice the ease with which poor people were manipulated into an orgy of looting and destruction last July? Now that the COVID state of disaster has been lifted, government must not sit back and let the grass grow under its feet. For the sustainability and the dignity of the country, we need to accelerate the process of implementing a basic income grant and not shove it back under the carpet. Nelson Mandela said, "Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it's an act of justice. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life. While poverty persists, there's no true freedom. Government must take heed of the situation on the ground. Our citizens did not shed their blood and tears for a democracy that would abandon them in poverty. Besides issues of dignity and justice, failing to implement a basic income grant is fueling a fire that will eradicate the gains that we've made in this democratic era and prove difficult and expensive to extinguish." Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Heron. I now turn on to the NFP. Sheikh Imam.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The National Freedom Party will support Budget Vote 19, Social Development. Allow me also to commend the Minister particularly. Whenever the Minister was required to address a need of someone on the ground and you contacted her, one of the few ministers that's always available to assist, and rest assured the matter gets attended to in due or short time. Now, allow me to start off by saying that whilst we support this, the question we need to ask, are we going to be able to sustain the number of people that are on some form of social assistance, which is standing at about 46% currently? Certainly, we cannot sustain this in the long run. Now, what are some of the root causes of this? It's the high unemployment rate, the socioeconomic conditions under which our people are living, the availability of alcohol and drug. The latest stats, 57% of accidents in South Africa, one of the most dangerous countries on the road in the world, is alcohol related. So the availability of alcohol, the availability of drugs, teenage pregnancy is rife. Now, unless we deal with this problem holistically, we can come out here, Chairperson, and keep blaming the ministers and the department. Ministers can come and go. You're not going to solve this problem unless you have a holistic approach to dealing with the challenges our people face. And that is one of the things that we are not actually doing. Now, let me go on to say this, that if you look at the issue of the rollout of the social grants currently, again, this thing is being given to big business. It's a win-win situation for these big businesses. They will benefit from this, number one, because of course they get a percentage of that, but more importantly, those people will be spending money in this. What about giving an opportunity to smaller businesses? Whilst one might argue that they may not have the capacity, but I also believe there are smaller business, supermarket chains and things owned by the Black community who are the less fortunate community, but would be able to equally roll out such a service. So I think that must also be taken into consideration. Now let's look at the issue of the role of NGOs and NPOs in fighting gender-based violence and other problems that we have in the community. Chairperson, billions of rands are spent with NGOs and NPOs, and what do you find with them? They come there once somebody is convicted or is appearing in court with this big placard, but what have they done to assist the department and work in a coordinated fashion to identify those people that might be victims of gender-based violence? Why do you have to wait for them to be raped or murdered and then go out there and grandstand and say no bail? I want to welcome the decision by the minister to roll out more and more social workers. They need to be the eyes and ears of the community to timelessly identify those that have had challenge. I think you're looking at me, Chairperson, because my time is up. The National Freedom Party supports this budget. Oh, thank you.
Listening to you. Thank you, Honorable Honorable Abrams, as the next speaker.
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Soma will take over. Just hold. Also take from here, and Honorable Soma, just to know, the minister had saved 5 minutes of her time. I now recognize Honorable Abrams.
Thank you,
From the
Chair.
DA.
Each year, DSD juggles its reduced budget with ever-increasing poverty demands, deliberating on which social ill requires more budget than the other. Budget cuts to critical programs mean DSD must separate good intentions from actual results. Currently, actual results, real impact in the lives of citizens, are not being achieved. We see this in the headlines, such as in last week's Sunday Times, which read, "Hunger kills SA's children." In the same newspaper, reports titled, "Where Malnutrition Lives. Enough food in SA, but kids are starving." And sand has become a meal for starving children. This reflects the true and disastrous state of our nation, one where children starve to death while big-bellied corrupt elite dine on caviar. COVID-19 saw poverty and hunger exacerbated, but we must never forget it was the ANC government's harsh and irrational long lockdown that was the real contributor to crisis-level poverty and hunger. The child support grant is 23% below the food poverty line and 40% below the average cost to feed a child a nutritious diet. Maize meal for breakfast, lunch, and supper, if you're lucky to eat anything at all, it's not nutritious. The grant is a good intention, but yields no actual results in reducing child stunting and malnutrition if left at 480. DSD and its entities are still drafting plans and policies, still remaking itself, as we heard earlier, all while children die. Let's take the maternal support policy, a policy in draft format since I joined the committee in 2019, a solution for pregnant mothers to access life-changing nutrition for their unborn children, but also a solution to bridge the gap between birth and accessing the child support grant, a database that can be shared with Home Affairs in order to expedite birth certificates for the vulnerable. Another example of DSD planning while children die is they are still drafting its policy for integrating and linking child support grant beneficiaries to the elusive government's basket of services. These beneficiaries are the children not in school or only attend to receive their one meal a day. DSD knows exactly who needs more assistance, but with this reduced budget, it may be more convenient to look the other way. The abuse of the child support grant by the adults entrusted with it is prevalent and is a crime. SASSA does not keep statistics on this grant, with only 23 convictions reported by the Department of Justice since 2015. This needs more attention. If not, it's like pouring water into a bucket with holes. We must look at increasing the age limit of this grant if the child is still in school, as it is done with the foster care grant. The public education system is failing our children. As a result, many children repeat the grades and are thus over 18 years old. Instead of helping these vulnerable children, this ANC government deals them a second blow by stripping away the grant and thus stripping away the opportunity to complete school, increasing youth unemployment. But where do we find budget to implement the above and move from good intentions to actual results? It's found by rooting out wasteful and fruitless expenditure, rooting out corruption. Over the last 3 years, almost 7.5 billion of all government's expenditure was fruitless and wasteful. DSD must finalize draft policies, put plans in action, honor good intentions by committing to actual results. If not, Chairperson, we will continue to read of children eating sand and wild plants, scavenging in dump sites to survive. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you, Honorable House Chair Janji. Now, Honorable Members, we shall move to Honorable Vilankulu. Over to you, ma'am.
Na khensa mutshami wa xitulu na ku xeweta vachaviseki hinkwavo lava nga kona na maAfrika-Dzonga hinkwavo. Avuxeni. The ANC rise in support of this budget vote number 19. This budget vote sits on the 5th month after the devastation fire swept our parliament in Cape Town, whereby the entire country was shocked and devastated. A month ago, a terrible flood disaster happened in KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, and other parts of the Northern Cape. The two pandemics, COVID-19, gender-based violence, and femicide, all these turns our country into an extremely complex and challenging period whereby so many lives has been lost. Our economy has severely damaged. Millions of our people are without jobs, and the most vulnerable people are women. President Mbeki once said, I quote, "Trying times need courage and resilience," close quote. As the ANC will continue to work for a better South Africa and a better world. Honorable House Chair, our nation is confronted with various social ills which impact the quality of life in our country. Some of social challenges we experience today are ills of the social engineering of our dark apartheid past. The state of our economy and the level of inequality in our society worsens the social ills we face. This budget votes respond to the mandate of the department as it is geared to ensure protection against vulnerability by creating an enabling environment for the provision of a comprehensive, integrated, and sustainable social development service. The prevalence of alcohol abuse, drug use, gender-based violence, and femicide, rape, abuse, and other social ills do not build our nation, but tear apart the lives of many South Africans, resulting many not realizing their full potential. The recent brutal murder of Hilary Gandhi in Mpumalanga has been a stark reminder of the social challenges confronting our society. May her soul and of many others who were victims of gender-based violence and femicide rest in eternal peace. The brutality the women of our nation experience has reached an alarming state. What makes the situation worse is the fact that on a daily basis, our women are at the receiving end of the social ills. Honorable members, in order to address the social ills, we need to begin at a family unit level. Without strengthening our families, we will continue to produce social ills. It is important for all South Africans, particularly parents and guardians, to appreciate the social responsibility in raising children and protect our children from exposure to experiences which do not build the values we seek to create as a nation. We welcome the process of the revised white paper on families in South Africa, whose objective, among others, is to promote strong and equitable ultra-family relationship within safe, supporting and nurturing communities, and to support families in need of characterized by severe conflict or neglect of vulnerable family members, to regain the dignity and resolve conflict in an amicable way. It is also important for religious bodies and civil society to focus on strengthening the family if we are to realize the mission of the white paper, to promote family well-being and strengthen and support families so that they are empowered to provide physical, emotional, psychological, financial, spiritual, and intellectual support and care for their members. We welcome the budget allocation to support over 300,000 family members with family preservation services. We encourage South Africans to allow seek counsel from existing social support structures in our communities and those offered by the department. As the African National Congress, we call on society to play an active role in addressing social challenges. Social agency is important in order to drive social transformation. Community mobilization is an important aspect of utilizing the people against social ills and focusing the community on developmental issues such as promoting education, promoting health lifestyles, supporting the elderly, and creating an enabling environment for economic development. Chairperson, we welcome the budget commitment to train 840 community development practitioners. This is a significant intervention, honorable members, as this will improve the capacity of community development practitioners to make a greater impact in our society and to learn best practice to effective mobilized communities. It is therefore critical for the development to continue with its strides supporting non-profit organizations as they play a critical role of social agency in addressing social challenges. We welcome the focus on capacitating stakeholders to implement the NPO mentorship model, which will enable increased support for NPOs. This budget vote provides funding for NPOs, and we urge the department to strengthen its monitoring of object funded to ensure intended outcomes are realized. Honorable members, we welcome the effort of the department in providing support to capacitate 270 workers. This will go a long way in strengthening the support provided by our social workers who provide support to vulnerable South Africans. In today's world, which has put to the fore the need of focus and mental health, social workers are a major need in our society due to the trauma many of our people face. Honorable Minister, our social workers are heroes who give hope to the vulnerable, and we applaud the department to continuously increase its capacity to provide social work services. Psychosocial challenges are becoming endemic, and the need for psychosocial services is paramount. The rate for suicide in our society is another great concern. We also welcome the target of capacitating 500 social services practitioners on social and behavioral change programs, as this improves the capacity to analyze behavior in order to respond in an appropriate manner. Honorable members, the department has an important program for teenage parents, the Sinomfuyo Teen Parents Digital Program, which is a 14-session parenting program for at-risk families with 10 to 18-year-old adolescents, is an important project. The use of digital technologies and other social media platforms will enhance sharing of information, which will support at-risk families. The department should continue to explore the use of digital platforms to expand its reach on various social ills. Leveraging technology can also enhance social work, as at times those who are vulnerable require someone to listen to them and to advise them. Honorable members and the people of South Africa, HIV and AIDS affect approximately 13.7% among the South African population, and it is important to always create awareness. The budget vote support testing programs and supports the South African National AIDS Council with 43 million to address the social and structural drivers of HIV and AIDS. It is important that we focus on preventative measures and focus on behavioral change. It is of great concern that we have increased teenage pregnancies. This reality has an impact on the children's growth and should not be promoted. Honorable Chairperson, the African National Congress supports this budget vote, and together working with the department through the Portfolio Committee, we shall play our oversight role to enhance delivering our services to the poor and vulnerable. Honorable House Chair and the nation, I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Bilankulu. Thank you so much. And we shall proceed, honorable members. Now I recognize Honorable Member AIC. AIC. Honorable from COPE. COPE. Honorable member from COPE. Honorable member from PAC. PAC. We shall proceed, honorable members. I recognize Honorable Opperman. Over to you, honorable member.
Dankie, huisvoorsitter. Met 'n volgehoue 2 miljard jaar op jaar besnoeiing binne Departement Maatskaplike Ontwikkeling, hoef jy nie verder as program 4 te kyk om te besef, hierdie is beslis nie 'n pro-arm begroting nie. Dit skyn wel 'n gedaante van armlastigheid te hê. Vanuit die 11 subprogramme onder program 4, gemoeid met welsynsdienste, beleidsontwikkeling en implementering, toon slegs 3 uit die 11 positiewe begrotings. Die res van die oorblywende 8 subprogramme is in 'n afdraande stryd teen besnoeiing en allokasieverminderings gewikkel. Besteding op program 4 self word verminder van 1,8 miljard in die huidige boekjaar na 1,6 miljard in die 2023-24 boekjaar. Die grootste verloders onder program 4 is die teensubstansmisbruikprogram wat skerp besnoei word, die ouer persone program wat met 1,1 miljoen verminder word, asook die program vir ongeskiktheidsregte wat drasties afwaarts aangepas is en wat bloot verdere marginalisering van hierdie sektor teweeg sal bring. Beide die subprogramme kinderdienste en families se begrotings is besnoei en die MIV-vigs subprogram is met R1 miljoen verminder. Terwyl al hierdie besnoeiings egter geskied, is daar 'n drastiese vermindering aan fondse reg oor die 9 provinsies aan wie daar sedert 2020-21 volle verantwoordelikheid oorgedra is vir psigososiale ondersteuning, skuilings, fondse vir voedselverligting, MIV-vigs en nie-regeringsorganisasies. Die provinsiale departement in die Noord-Kaap, provinsie van my kom vandaan, se besnoeiings beloop R909 miljoen sonder enige alternatief hoe om die impak van hierdie vermindering in allokasie te versag of teen te werk. Die Nasionale Ontwikkelingsagentskap self is so onderbefonds, hulle is nie eens in staat om hulle mandaat van armoedeverligting en armoedebekamping uit te voer nie. Met 'n 11% besnoeiing in die komende boekjaar, beteken dit 'n R26,7 miljoen vermindering aan finansiële hulp aan gemeenskapsgebaseerde organisasies wie armoede moet beveg op voedselvlak. Die NPO-begroting alleen is met R9,2 miljard onderbefonds. Erger nog, is daar R0 begroot vir die subprogram Sosiale Werkers Beursgeleenthede, wat beteken 'n hele R3,4 miljoen is gesny. Dit terwyl ons land reeds ernstige tekorte het aan die skaarsvaardigheid. Ons benodig tans 70,000 maatskaplike werkers slegs om die aangepaste kinderwet te implementeer. Daar is nie 'n dooie sent begroot vir opleiding van nuwe maatskaplike werkers nie, maar ons kort 'n verdere 5,000 maatskaplike werkers slegs om die substansmisbruikprogram te implementeer. Dit terwyl die program self gesny is van 21,9 miljoen na 20,7 miljoen rand in die komende boekjaar. As ons in ag neem dat die substansmisbruik tans die hoogte inskiet weens werkloosheid in Suid-Afrika en hopeloosheid in ons land, hoe regverdig jy so 'n besnoeiing? Die gebruik van tik in ons land is 2 maal hoër as in die res van die wêreld. Ons sit met 15% van Suid-Afrikaners wat met 'n dwelmprobleem sit en die fetale alkoholsindroom koers is 5 maal hoër in ons land as in ander lande. Die is mos programme wat die weerloostes en kwesbares tot redding moet wees. Hoe sny jy aan programme wat senior burgers beïnvloed, asook kinders, families, dwelmafhanklikes, mense met MIV-vigs en persone wie met gestremdhede saamlewe en jy noem dit 'n pro-arm begroting. Hier dring tieners om te vergeet. In ons land kry kinders en sit 10 miljoen welgeskape mense sonder werk of hoop. Ons stryd is nie teen vlees en bloed nie. Ons oorlog is teen armoede, staatsverknegting en ongelykhede. Maar in hierdie oorlog is ons tans lelik aan die verloorkant. Ek dank u.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I recognize Honorable Stock. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. Let me also greet the Honorable Members, the Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Social development is about advancing transformation and providing a safety net for the vulnerable and also to empower them for self-liberation. in order to realize self-liberation and also to address the poverty in its root causes. We need to transform our economy to create economic opportunities for the vulnerable. It is for this reason that the Department of Social Development is not only focused on social grants, but rather guided by a comprehensive social security policy framework. It is comprehensive because it needs to address the different dimensions of poverty throughout our society. The African National Congress has prioritized the fiscal framework which allocates over 59.4% to the social wage. The social wage responds to the multiple nature of determinants of poverty. This is the conceptual basis of a comprehensive social security system, which is developmental to free the potential of all South Africans. Poverty is a deprivation which should at all times innovate. We should all times innovate to address. However, honorable members, according to the combating hunger, it's also an important issue which needs to be addressed by the Department of Social Development. Combating hunger is an important sustainable development goal and an African Agenda 2063 goal. It's also a priority with regard to that. Hunger deprives the well-being and quality of life of humans to a large extent. It is imperative that all stakeholders in labor, business, and civil society focus their energies in ensuring that no South African is left behind and has to endure the pain of indignity of hunger. This is a right of our Constitution, which is also enshrined and which the Constitution protects. In order to alleviate poverty through working opportunities, this budget vote supports 176,474 extended public works program opportunities through the social sector EPWP programs. This is a critical massive intervention which will create sustenance for many South Africans who need these opportunities the most. These opportunities are in line with the developmental mandate of the department to equip the recipients with sectoral experience, which will enable them to take advantage of other sustainable economic opportunities in the sector. The budget vote further supports the linking of about 20,000 social protection beneficiaries to sustainable livelihood opportunities. And for the next financial year, 30,000 beneficiaries will also be linked to this. Honorable van der Merwe from the IFP, it is unpatriotic to reject a safety net budget. Contrary to the misguided belief of welfarism, our government is not a welfare state, but a developmental state which seeks to intervene in the social and economic life of the country to address the injustice of the past and also to create a better future for all South Africans. Even developed countries provide a social support for the vulnerable citizens of that particular country. We welcome the progress of the Department of integrating the information sharing systems with other entities which provide critical developmental opportunities such as student funding through the NSFAS. This information sharing enables social protection beneficiaries to be automatically approved for student funding. Honorable Minister, this progress is commendable. Despite the progress, the material conditions remains that of increasing unemployment and also poverty and the widening inequality gap. It is common cause that our country is the most unequal society in the world. This exposes the sheer structural exclusion of colonialism of a special type. This therefore calls for the department to continuously innovate to develop programs which will actually massify the impact of linking beneficiaries with the developmental opportunities. On the youth, this budget vote supports the training of about 600 youth on the development of the skills development program. This program by the department are also in line with the SONA commitments by the Honorable His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa. Without the social protection program by the South African Social Security Agency, over 18 million South Africans would be living in a precarious manner. We are strongly opposed to the perspective which disregards the importance of social assistance by our government. Those perspectives are actually spoken from a position of privilege and they can never be said if one has experienced sleeping with an empty stomach and not knowing how they will get their first meal on the next day. The social wage comprehensively ensures that no one endures the pain and indignity of hunger. For children, hunger comes with a lot of implications, as this results in the child stunting, which continues to affect 27% of our children throughout the country. This takes away the right of children to grow up to attain equal opportunities. It also has an impact on the growth and the health of the children. Honorable Minister, in our constituency work, the people have raised some concerns in our communities where mothers who receive child support grants do not use the grants to support their growth of the child. It is therefore critical that we strengthen the campaigns in our community to have mechanisms of reporting such parents to ensure that we protect the rights of our children. We want to commend the department for having displayed the agility of responding to urgent crises which befall our nation in different scales. We welcome the support also, Honorable Minister, the interventions from the National Development Agency, whose primary mandate is to contribute towards the eradication of poverty and its causes by granting funding to civil society organizations to implement the development projects in poor communities. We also welcome the targets of 8,000 civil society organizations to meet their registration of reporting requirements and to build their capacity in areas such as financial management and leadership and general management. This is actually important work to strengthen civil society and also to mobilize our communities in general. The entity will further create 3,000 jobs opportunities, which are part of the presidential employment stimulus. The entity will also fund cooperatives, which are creating efforts by citizens for income generation. It will be critical that the turnaround strategy of the NDA yields the expected outcomes to reposition the NDA as an entity which makes tremendous impact on poverty. Honorable Masango from the DA, as well as Honorable Member Sukas from the ACDP, the ANC is a caring government, and the DA is a party that advances the retainment of the status quo of inequality. The department is not paralyzed, but runs the largest social security system. In recent portfolio committee meetings, both Honorable Masango and both Honorable Sukas, you expressed the greatest form of appreciation for the department officials for answering their calls and also to responding to a number of queries which we have sent or forwarded to them very adequately. To be quite honest, and just to tell the truth in today's debate, I'm actually not surprised that you used this platform for political posturing and grandstanding. My question to you, however, my honorable members, is that why do you acknowledge, or how can you acknowledge that there is great performance improvement on the work of the department, whilst you are also raising that there's general neglect of underperformance and no proper systems in place of accountability? I'm really not surprised by the issues that you raised, because we know that it's mainly for political scoring, and you want to appear, you are appearing before the TV, the cameras, and you want to create and drive a particular narrative. It is estimated that in sub-Saharan Africa, only about 10% of the economically active population is covered by statutory social security schemes in Africa. My advice to you is to make a continental review on the social protection system, and you will find that our government has made advanced strides in providing a social safety net. Like all other institutions, there are weaknesses, but we should never allow the weaknesses to overshadow the positive impact that our government is doing, and also the hard work that is done by the ANC-led government. Your focus, honorable members, is only on the failures of the department. And for that matter, it is quite unfortunate that we only focus on the weaknesses, and we are failing to highlight all the achievements and all the good things that the department has actually achieved or are striving towards achieving. The honorable member, Honorable Sheikh Imam, agrees with your initial view. What you actually failed to tell our people is that the department has put in place strong measures to address the issues raised by the Auditor General of South Africa, and also to improve the inefficiencies that are currently actually happening in the system. which also includes to a large extent the implementation of the outstanding issue of the biometric system, which will actually deal with or eliminate also the fraudulent activities that are happening in the system of SASSA and all of that. The African National Congress supports the budget vote 19 of the Department of Social Development. We support this budget vote because it responds to the commitments made by the government and the provisions of the Constitution. I thank you, honorable members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Stock. Now I recognize the Minister of Social Development. Honorable Minister, you've got 5 minutes extra, which you left on your 30 minutes, so you will be having 15 minutes. Over to you, ma'am. Honorable Minister Zulu. Unmute yourself, ma'am. Honorable Minister, you are muted. May the IT desk assist us in terms of unmuting the minister.
She's not on the platform.
No, she is. I can see her. If you go to the gallery, you'll see her. She's there. Honorable members, can we just give a minister a few minutes so that we can sort her out so that she can be unmuted?
House Chairperson.
Honorable Stock.
I've been informed that the minister is frozen, so they are busy trying to sort it out. Maybe just maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Thank you.
Advise her to log off and then come back again. She'll be fine.
Okay, all right, thanks.
We apologize, honorable members. That's a technology that's beyond any human capabilities.
Chairperson, can I ask that maybe one of the ANC members read the minister's last few points? As Honorable Stock was already repeating himself a few times, maybe someone can just repeat something again.
No, the DM is present. The DM is present.
No, honorable. No, honorable Fiber, you know that you are out of order, thoroughly so out of order. I'm sure you're raising that on a lighter note. We shall wait for the minister. I requested you to be patient with her. The technology, you can't control it.
He is out of order. He cannot lecture us.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Bilankulu. Let's just wait a few seconds.
Honorable House Chair, if you can just request the table staff to allow, or no, it's been allowed. They've accepted.
She's back. She's back.
No, order, honorable members, can we allow her to use somebody's gadget and we allow her to speak, to address us? I can see that she's using Linton Kunu's gadget. She will unmute herself and then. wrap up her debate. There you are.
There we are.
Okay.
Go that side. Go that side.
Okay.
Can you give it to me? Let me hold it.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. We can see you. We can hear you. You may proceed. You've got 5 additional minutes.
Can I for now remove myself from the camera, Chairperson, so that I don't waste your time?
Please do so. Switch off your.
Okay.
Yes, Honorable Minister, you may. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Firstly, I'd like to thank you, House Chair, and let me also appreciate all the members who participated in this debate, but particularly thank and appreciate the NFP and UDM and other parties that supported the budget vote. And we'll ensure that we work with you to put our people first in responding to the challenges. Chairperson, I do want to thank Member Nkwangwa particularly and say to him, yes, we are with you in terms of ensuring that the people are supported, especially the informal sector that we were talking about, as well as the social workers. May I also indicate, honorable members and Honorable Nkwangwa in particular, that as a Department of Social Development, we also managed to get resources from some embassies. For instance, the Chinese embassy that supported us not only now during the disaster, but also supported us during the unrest. And what we did as a department is to say, this money that they are giving us is supposed to be money for food parcels, but I requested the department that can we make sure that we coordinate the issue of the food parcels, coordinate the people that are assisting us, the organizations, the NPOs, the private sector and all. But can we also take some of this money and support your informal businesses? Because many of them, they lost their livelihoods and well-being. And so working together with the Department of Small Business Development, we're going to do our best to see how we can support those people who are in the informal business, who lost a lot, including the implements of trade. So part of the money that we have, we will be giving to people to go and buy, to make more money for themselves, to buy the products or whatever they sell, so that they can go back again and work for their families. Because I know that even those that get some social grants, some of those people are making something out of the social grants to make sure that they keep their families alive. And also I wish to thank the members from the EFF. We remain committed to the attainment of a comprehensive social security system as envisaged in the National Development Plan. This is a social protection system that is concerned with both development and distribution of benefits and developments and solidarity. And therefore, the basic income grant is therefore an essential element of the new social compact in what is already the most unequal society in the world. By the way, I was very excited when I saw that Elon Musk is talking about the universal basic income grant. And I thought maybe if he says it, some people will listen to him. And I mean, he raises this not only from a point of view of South Africa, but he raises it as something that will be needed to be discussed by the world, because the issues of unemployment, poverty, and others are not only a South African problem, but of course, we need to make sure that as South Africa will respond to it. So during this financial year, we shall table the updated policy on the basic income grant for Cabinet's consideration. As Honorable Mvana indicated, the President has directed that we start looking at the BIC as an important developmental stepping stone in current dispensation of our democracy. And Honorable Briet, it is important to have accurate information, and I would like to say to you, the advantage is we are there and we are always available at the portfolio committee. And therefore, if members have got other questions that they want to continue raising with us, we will be there to respond to that. I also want to remind you that the ECD has migrated to the Department of Basic Education. I'm sure you are very much aware of that. You may recall that we were paying 17 rands per child and not 15 rands per child for the past 2 years. We didn't remove money from feeding children to PPEs. We reprioritized the funds for infrastructure development to assist in time of crisis of COVID-19 to respond to the most urgent need at that time. Some members have unfortunately decided to focus on the negative aspects, but yes, we are able to take that. We are able to take that from a very positive point of view, because may I also tell you, members, when you raise issues with me, negative or not, I always take them very seriously, because I think that it is an opportunity for me and my department in its portfolio to go out there and see the things that we are raising so that we can be able to respond to them. I acknowledge indeed that there are weaknesses like in every institution, but we have put in place strong controls and measures in place to eliminate fruitless, wasteful, and irregular expenditure, and to ensure that there are preventative controls in place to avoid fraud and corruption and instill a culture of consequence management. I heard some members saying that there is no consequence management. We have to report back on the consequence management that we have, and we'll share that with the portfolio committee. With regards to the employment of social workers, honorable members would recall that we have employed a number of social workers across various provinces, even especially during COVID-19 pandemic, albeit on contract. Some provinces like the Free State and KZN have actually taken social workers on permanent basis, and we encourage all provinces to do the same. And again, I want to add here, Chairperson, that the issue of social workers must not be an issue only for the Department of Social Development. We are also encouraging other departments, including the private sector, to work with us here, because I personally believe that in dealing with the social ills which some of the members raised here, it's about us ensuring, including gender-based violence, it's about us ensuring that we do our work through the district development model. And I've been insisting and talking to the department that if we have to deal with these social ills, we need to mobilize our communities so that we work hand in hand with our communities. And I've said to the department, we need to deal with this house to house, street to street, community to community, because sasebenza thina siprotectwa sisupportwa abantu in our communities, and now that we have freedom, we need that the same support that we got at the time now being in government to make sure that people are supported in our communities. And then Honorable Van der Merwe, I have directed the department to work on a plan of action on the employment of the social workers, as I've indicated before. And as Honorable Sheikh Imam indicated, social workers, the eyes and ears on the ground, and have fundamental role to play in the care and protection of our people, but more so in ensuring preventative measures, because here's the problem with South Africa as a whole. We need collectively to look at preventative measures. And I agree with Honorable Imam that it's important for our communities to work hand in hand with us, with others. I also want to thank all categories of social workers who have done a fantastic job in looking after our people, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic and the current disasters that we have right now. With regard to, on the 350 grant, we just received information recently with the current iteration of 350 grant that over 44,000 people who applied are actually deceased by August 2021. With the public servants that are receiving child support grant, we actually found them in the system ourselves. And some of them are actually EPWP workers and new graduates and interns. And it's important, honorable members, that sometimes when we need the information, we need to ask for this information so that we can clarify, so that to avoid drama where we don't necessarily need drama. Lastly, I want to say, for the sake of our children and children, that we have to ensure that we lift people out of poverty through our interventions and programs, and we must do this within the context of social compact and within district development model as directed by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And I also want as I conclude, Chair, I need to thank all the organizations, NPOs that we normally work with out there. And I want to say to them, please keep coming back to us. Let us work together. You be on the ground. And I talk about organizations such as Goodman Foundation, Kwanele Foundation, National Shelter Movement, Act Now. Nina Act Now, sinifuna back, because when you are out there, you are always, people can see you, they can hear your message. The UNFPA is also an organization, the United Nations and we work very well with the United Nations, by the way. Commission on Gender Equality, Gift of the Givers, we had a meeting with them not long ago because we want to be able to be on the same par and the same level of appreciation and understanding and support. Others are like Meals on Wheels and a whole lot of others that we work with. I wish to thank the members of the African National Congress who actually responded, in particular, the last speaker, Honorable Stock. Honorable Stock did respond to some of the questions that were raised by the members, and it shouldn't be a surprise that the members of the African National Congress are responding in the manner in which they are responding. We are one government, but that does not remove their responsibility obviously to do the oversight as expected by government. And so for those who think the members are singing a song around me, they are not. They are talking about things that they see on the ground. And I would like to also say that we are celebrating the month, Africa Month, and the 25th is going to be Africa Day. And I'm encouraging all our members to remember and always appreciate the fact that we are Africans, we are in Africa, and therefore use this opportunity to celebrate what we have managed to achieve globally from an African point of view, from colonialism to freedom to democracy. And in South Africa, our democracy is on the move. And in South Africa, we are strengthening our institutions of democracy so that our people can have what they fought for, our people can benefit for what they fought for. And to everybody across the board, let us celebrate ourselves as South Africans, and negativity will never reside here. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, honorable members. That concludes the debate and the business of the virtual mini plenary. The mini plenary will now rise. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Chair.